Hello everyone, this is part 18 of What If Naruto Was Born in the Uzumaki Clan, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Tsunade had a smile on her face as she watched Kushina and Jiraiya talk with each other. Their reunion had been full of tears as Jiraiya loved that woman as if she was his own daughter. It was then they came to know all that had happened, Minato's S for his son, Kushina's desire to be with her boy, and why this war had started between the dear villages. To say Tsunade Senju was horrified would be an understatement. So much treachery, so much so much pain, so many innocents lost. If Naruto Uzumaki was speaking the truth, then there were people in Tsunade's village who had to pay the price for their crimes. As a Senju and heir to Hashirama, it was her duty to preserve Konoha. Even from its own people if needed. She saw the boy standing near the shore with his big white wolf. His bright red hair flowed freely in the air, making her believe as if he had been killed by fire at birth. After hearing everything from Kushina, it made Tsunade realize his was a sad story. Born with the Kyuubi's tainted fire and the tears of his parents, taken away from his true home, raised an outcast hated by many, watching his village be destroyed, feeling the terror of leading his people during their march to Konoha, being betrayed by a sworn ally, holding himself responsible for the deaths of his people, returning back to save his village despite all the odds against him, and now becoming the youngest Kage in history, the leader of his clan and village. Naruto Uzumaki's journey was nothing short of fascinating and heartbreaking. His life full of lies, pain and suffering, yet he had fought and fought. No matter what happened, he never gave up on his people, believed in them and fought for them every day. Tsunade had always wondered why she had felt this strange connection with this boy from the moment he was revealed in that meeting of Konoha leaders. Now she knew why. He was Nawaki reborn. Naruto was different from Tsunade's little brother, mostly in personality. But their spirits were the same, the only difference being Nawaki fought, believed and for Konoha. While Naruto was fighting for Izu. She debated telling him the truth that it was Izu leaders who forced him away from his parents, that Hiruzen had no hand in the Uzumaki survivors. But she had seen the fury in those blue eyes. The only reason she was even allowed a chance to talk was because of her distant relation to the Uzumaki clan through her grandmother. It wasn't much leverage, but the Uzumaki tried to look after their own. At this point, however, the boy would likely behead her and Jiraiya if she tried to tell him the truth. She had no proof. The Nadaima Azuki who oversaw the exchange was the third Azuki who would know the truth was also that only left Hiruzen, who Naruto would never believe. But the boy would believe the treaty papers that had been signed by Lord II of Izu when he took Naruto away. Those records still existed in Konoha's guarded library. It still had Izu's seal and Lord II's signature on it, which would remove any hint of falsehood on Konoha's part. All she had to do was get the boy to agree for a meeting with Hiruzen. Naruto was likely to lose much of his anger when he discovers the lie his entire life was based upon. The fact that he sent his own father to without knowing how much Minato loved him. It would break the boy. And that was the price for peace. One life against thousands. It had been the same back then when the infant Naruto was handed over to Izu in order to prevent hostilities between their two villages. And now another dishonorable thing had to be done to stop another war. If Tsunade looked back, it was her village that had resorted to treachery and violent ways more. But it was done and she could do nothing about it. Jiraiya still wasn't comfortable in talking with the boy after knowing he sent Minato to his death. Tsunade understood it was Minato's own choice, but Jiraiya had loved his student as a son and was blaming the only person he could in the current situation. Not that Naruto cared the least bit of what Jiraiya thought. Or maybe he now knew she was a Senju and would squash him like a bug if he looked at her the wrong way. Yet he defiantly glared at her. Brave but young. Leave him alone, my lady, said Yahiko respectfully, but his cold tone betrayed his true feelings. I am Konoha's ambassador. I will have words with him, boy, replied Tsunade icily. The confrontation would have escalated until Naruto turned his head back, giving his friend, bodyguard, a slight nod. Yahiko grunted and stepped aside, allowing her to pass. Before Tsunade could speak, the Uzukage spoke. There will be no peace. She clenched her fists and tried to rein in her anger and disappointment. Couldn't this young boy think about this just a little before dooming thousands? If you could give Hiruzen-sama a chance, he can clear this all out, she almost pleaded, but he glared at her bitterly. My people will still be s. Tsunade flinched, for that remark was utterly true. Nobody had found any Uzumaki B, but the way he was glaring must mean there was some truth to this atrocity. Please at least listen to Lord Hokage. If you don't, your clan will lose more, advised Tsunade gently. So will Konoha. Gods, he was stubborn. But if he hadn't been, then he was not fit for a cage either. In a war of attrition, Konoha will always beat your forces. You know that. He didn't say anything, but his amused smile at her warning made her believe he was up to something. But without proof she could not accuse him, not when there was still so much bad B. I can ally with Suna. How would Konoha like to fight a two-front war, Lady Tsunade? He asked dangerously, and she felt a shiver go down her spine. Judging from his cold gaze, he meant it. You wouldn't. Konoha is my enemy, and I will do everything to see you pay for your treachery. Konoha butchered my people who were defenseless and broken. They took our clan children to experiment upon, he accused angrily. Where is the proof? Forgive me, if I don't take your word alone or those of your clan, retorted Tsunade harshly. If he was going to be stubborn, then so was she. And there was hardly any actual proof of his claim. No B were found, no records of any unauthorized Anbu movements or sanctioned missions of such nature. And she knew Hiruzen would never order such an atrocity. The Hokage would rather s. The glare she received from Naruto was enough to make her gulp. So much hatred in those young eyes. If you weren't under a peace banner and share RB, I would K you for that remark, he warned, and Tsunade knew she might have pushed too far. Time for diplomacy. She gave him a small apologetic bow. I'm sorry for my words, but we need proof if we are to punish those who have done your people wrong. Or at the very least convince the Hokage of your accusations. Hiruzen Sarutobi is a man of honor, and he would never order such an atrocity on your people who are like family to my entire village, she explained sympathetically and patiently. He looked at her for several long moments, but she held her ground and never backed down. He must understand she was sincere and spoke the truth, and a hope arose in her heart when his glare lessened. The last time I chose to trust your village, I lost many good people. I can't make that mistake again, he said finally. We won't, she promised honestly, but he gave her an amused smile. You are an honorable person, my lady. But there is no respect for honor in this world, he lamented. He turned around and started to walk away as Tsunade's world came crashing down. She couldn't give up, couldn't condemn her distant Uzumaki family to BS for a war would do exactly that, could never again face her grandmother Mito if she let her be perish from this world. For Danzo and the other warmongers would K every last Uzumaki babe if open war started. She was desperate and ran after him. When Yahiko tried to stop her, she punched him, making him fly away gracelessly. But to her surprise, he burst into smoke. A shadow clone. She sensed movement and turned behind just in time to parry her kunai against Yahiko's blade as he emerged from the sand. Maybe he was not a fool after all. The hair at the back of her end stood up as a coldness descended over her. And it was not Yahiko. Behind her stood Naruto with his two red demonic eyes like a demon glaring down at her. The sword in his hand placed at her end ready to end her life. From a distance, Jiraiya and Kushina were running towards them to stop this madness, but it would be too late by the time they arrived. Looking into the boy's cold eyes showed the SK he was, and she had provoked him. Tsunade surrendered. Yahiko had his sword placed on her N and was glaring down at her. At a single command, he could S her N, but he waited. She looked at Naruto and knew right then it would take something monumental for him to listen to reason. Not money, not gold or diamonds, or fake apologies. The Uzumaki lives lost were invaluable to him. And then Tsunade knew what she had to do. It went against her pride and oath as a ninja, but she had seen more than enough children like Nawaki S in the previous war. She didn't want to see another. Naruto's eyes slightly widened when the last Senju knelt before him. As Hashirama's and Mito's heir, on my honor as a Senju, on the B that we both share in our veins, I, Tsunade Senju, pledge my life to defend the Uzumaki, Lord Fourth and this village if Konohagakure should try to betray you. I swear it, by all the gods, old and new. And if you don't believe me, then I shall end my life here, for I will not kill my own bee. She presented the only heirloom of her grandfather with her left hand, the famed necklace that helped Hashirama tame the Bijus. And in her other hand she held a kunai ready to end her life. Tsunade dared not lift her gaze to hide the faint tears in her eyes. She was risking everything, her loyalty, her home, her people, her Dan, her family's last legacy. But she didn't want a war. Stunned silence echoed in the area except for the shocked gasps she heard from the nearby people, but nothing from him. Her heart trembled and she knew Jiraiya would kill every Uzumaki if she took her life. But it was all she had to offer and she was willing to risk it for peace. Yet he said nothing. With a broken heart she plunged the kunai straight for her heart. Is this how you felt, Hashirama Gigi? She distantly heard Jiraiya and Kushina yell her name, heard Yahiko gasp, saw the fleeting reflection of her parents and little brother, and finally Dan's smile. She had closed her eyes waiting for the inevitable pain, ashamed of her failure to save everyone. Yet instead of the metal she felt something splash against her sea. Reluctantly, she opened her eyes and saw B. But it was not hers. Her kunai had S, but it was not hers. It was his. Startled, she looked at Naruto, who had used his own hand to block the kunai from Tsunade's heart. He had saved her. His eyes were devoid of the hatred and anger, instead they were full of respect and warmth. He even gave her a warm smile. Enough. The others were gawking at what they had just witnessed in these few moments. It was history being repeated again, along with the birth of a faint hope. You truly are something else, Lady Tsunade, said Naruto with an approving smile, as he threw away the bee kunai and handed Tsunade back her necklace with his other hand. Jiraiya's heart had stopped after seeing what this crazy woman had just done. Just like her grandfather. He looked at the young boy, Minato's son, and for the first time saw warmth in those eyes and respect for Tsunade. Jiraiya's teammate had done the impossible. I accept your oath. Perhaps there are still some honorable people left in Konoha, and if a woman like you vouches for Hiruzen Sarutobi, then he shall have the talk he wants. I don't hold much hope for justice and may continue the war, then we shall be enemies. But I will hold you to your oath if Konoha tries to kill me in that meeting, he warned. I understand. And if that happens, then I will honor my oath. Regardless of everything, she promised honestly, ignoring Jiraiya's disappointed look. Naruto looked in her eyes for few long moments, and when he was satisfied, he nodded, making Tsunade want to jump happily. 4 days from now we shall hold negotiations at Castle Storm. It's a small island between our nations. A neutral ground, each delegation shall consist of the village leader and their small guard only, he ordered. It will be done, Lord Fourth, she promised, eager to send the good news back to her teacher. Naruto simply nodded, turned around and started walking back towards his tower where he held office with Yahiko dutifully following after him. Tsunade sighed in relief. This is madness. Naruto remained seated as Lord Arima seethed. Yahiko was no better with his angry scowl, but he was more controlled in his disappointment with just a heated glare directed at him. While Arima was furious. The man s his hand on a nearby wall and glared at him. You promised us justice, Lord Fourth. This is not justice, yelled Lord Arima. His glare might have terrorized many men, but Naruto remained unfazed. I have made my decision. This is my will. Will you obey or will you revolt? Asked Naruto directly. For a long minute, Arima glared at him furiously to the extent that Naruto thought the man was going to attack. But the clan's values were too strongly ingrained in him, so he bowed reluctantly. You have my loyalty and that of this clan. But you are making a mistake, warned Arima. Your opinion has been noted, Lord Arima. For a moment, Naruto was reminded of how Akeno would have seethed just like this on his choice. It was strange, why Arima reminded him of her in some way. But his thoughts were stopped when Arima walked away, but not without a final remark that stung. Your honor shall be your downfall, Lord Fourth. The door banged shut, which finally made the young boy sigh. He never wanted this, but it was his curse to bear now. If only Nagato was here. You have ruffled quite a few feathers, commented Yahiko carefully. I know, replied Naruto tiredly, suddenly feeling a lot older than he actually was. Why are you doing this? He looked up to see the pleading gaze of his friend. He was disappointed, but he wanted to understand, and unlike Arima, this boy was still here by his side. I promised my father that I would give Konoha one chance to make things right, one chance to punish those guilty. And he stopped, for the last promise was never to be revealed to anyone. Yahiko must have sensed his discomfort and thankfully didn't press for that last detail. That was a secret shared between father and son. Do you trust Konoha? Asked Yahiko worriedly. His friend snorted. Only a fool would trust those treacherous bastards. Yahiko blinked in surprise. But you just now said. I know what I agreed to. I am doing this for my father and to give honorable people like Tsunade one last opportunity. In my heart I don't have much hope. But I will honor my promise to my father, however I will not make the same foolish mistake again, he promised fiercely. How? Asked Yahiko. Zetsu. On his command, a white creature emerged from the floor with a sickly smile. Yahiko flinched despite now knowing all there was to know about these new allies. As an Akatsuki member, Yahiko had came to know all that had happened with Naruto in that cave. He still found it hard to believe that his friend Kei Madara Uchiha, but Naruto was an honorable person and Yahiko believed him. But he didn't trust these Zetsus yet. Yes, my lord, asked the white creature. Have 3,000 of your brothers surround Castle Storm and the entire island. Remain hidden, but the moment you see any Konoha force approaching or hiding apart from the Hokage's small armed escort, kill them all, ordered Naruto coldly. What about the Hokage? Asked Zetsu eagerly. This meeting is as much a threat to him as it is to me. I want to believe Tsunade, but I know how twisted this world is. I fear I may have to kill Hiruzen Sarutobi after all. Yahiko was stunned. How could he forget the other side of his friend? The one who acted as the Akatsuki leader. The one who orchestrated ruthless ambushes for his enemies. He had done it for Konoha, for Iwa. And now he was doing it again for the Hokage. Naruto, you, said Yahiko in shock, making his friend smile a little. I know the risk, Yahiko. That is why Hiden and Lord Arima shall accompany me along with some good Uzumaki fighters. I'll also have Kisame leading the ambush if things go south. Jiraiya and Tsunade have to come and so does my mother, for the Hokage will want to see her alive and unharmed, explained Naruto. You have planned this all out, haven't you? Asked Yahiko, a little impressed with his cunning. To think he was honoring the promise he made to his father while also trapping his enemy. It raised another question. Yes, confessed Naruto hesitantly. You should have told Lord Arima, scolded Yahiko, but Naruto shook his head. He will know about the trap I've set when the time is right. I don't want to spook Konoha in any manner, best let my people seem angry and disappointed over my choice. It will hold up my deception long enough for me to decide what to do, explained Naruto seriously. Then I shall come with you, decided Yahiko. No. This time Yahiko was truly angry, but Naruto silenced him by raising his hand and pointing his finger towards a location on the shinobi map. You'll lead the 2,000 Zetsu clones guarding a zoo. Together with Commander Hoji and Lord Arima's son Shin, you will go north and strike Kumo. I name you Lord Commander of this army, ordered Naruto calmly. Yahiko paled. He must be gawking at his friend, for Naruto smiled amusedly. It took some time, but Yahiko got over his shock only to surprise his friend. I will not leave you. In such an important hour, you cannot go into the enemy's den alone without any of your friends by your side. Nagato, Akano and Kyusuke are not here. Neither are Konan and Daibutsu. You may trust Lord Arima and your people. But Naruto, you are my friend, my leader, my brother, you have done more for me than many others, taught me how to be a true ninja, and I cannot abandon you. Naruto was stunned after hearing his confession. Yahiko could see that. But it was the truth, and his friend had to accept it. I am doing this for you, Yahiko. There is nobody I trust more to help our two friends currently fighting in Kumo. Commander Hoji and Shin are too hungry for B and might make hasty mistakes. But you have less personal stake in getting revenge, so I ask you to be Lord Commander, urged Naruto kindly, and laid a hand on Yahiko's shoulder. Why are you sending us all away? Asked Yahiko sadly. For the first time perhaps, Yahiko saw how much Naruto missed his friends. Old and new, he needed them all now more than ever. Yet almost all of them were away doing something important, and now he was sending his last friend away. It is necessary. He saw that his answer was not to Yahiko's liking. But he couldn't tell the truth, for none of them would understand. Perhaps Nagato would, but not the rest. Naruto knew he was but one man, powerful but just a man. This war was going to be long and only the gods knew what the future held for all of them. But his clan, this village, the alliance he was building with his revolution. And most of all his friends were his legacy. If someday he was not here, they would carry on his dreams. He was developing them to be leaders in their own right, men and women who could lead the world to a better path. Kyusuke was already finding his own way. Nagato and Akeno were preparing a megacore for the coming war and would play an important role in defending it. Konan and Daibutsu would learn a lot from the war and either conquest or defeat from their campaign against Kumo. It would change them, hopefully for the better, and make them leaders. Just as it would make Yahiko. Then I will accomplish your dream. Your flag will fly across Kumo, I swear it, promised Yahiko, earning a nod from his friend. They both shook hands and hugged each other briefly before Yahiko marched out to carry out his orders. When he was gone, Naruto turned towards Zetsu and handed him a prepared scroll carrying his orders. Make Yahiko the leader of Akatsuki should I fall in the future. If he's yes or refuses, then Kisame shall take up the mantle. You all shall carry on our revolution. And if Lord Arima does not survive or refuses to take up the mantle, then I name Nagato Uzumaki, the fifth. Zetsu took the scroll but continued staring at him for few moments before giving a curt nod. But when Naruto turned to leave, the creature spoke. We have seen many men in our time on this earth. I pray that you do what you feel is right and emerge victorious, said Zetsu. I will get justice for us all, one way or another, he promised with a smile. The army will be waiting to strike at your enemies. Just give us the command and your enemies shall fall, Lord Fourth. Zetsu was gone after giving that promise as Naruto walked towards the window and observing the growing village beneath him. Azu was picking itself back up, the scars were still there, the pain too raw, but they had focus and a goal again. For he was there to lead them. And lead them he shall. He had never trusted Konoha before, nor was he going to start now. War was inevitable, he knew it deep in his heart. But for the few who had loved him, who had given their lives for him, and for all the innocents who will be butchered if the war continues, he had to give this last offer. If it failed, then he would be going up against a veteran Kage. Hiruzen Sarutobi was a ninja to be feared and respected, the professor who had mastered many jutsu and who was stronger than most men in the world even at his growing age. Last time, Naruto had been saved from facing the Raikage alone by his father. Minato prevented the fight and after that made sure the Raikage and his son would never get in Naruto's way. These past few days, he had been practicing his dark powers and controlling them more efficiently. But it was his father's gift that was the hardest to master. It was not a power passed down through but one that must be learned through hard work and pain. Minato had requested him to strive for peace but also given his son something to defend his life if war became inevitable. A father's love. Whatever mistakes his old man had made, Naruto now knew and understood that deep down Minato had always loved him. It made him dream of something he had never thought before. He saw himself but he was older by a decade perhaps, and before him were two boys riding atop two large direwolves. The one who seemed like the elder had red hair just like him but with shades of blue at the endpoints. He was handsome and focused on battling his wooden sword against the other boy. This one was younger with facial features similar to the elder boy, but hair as stark as silver. But his deep blue eyes were the same as Naruto's, and there was so much life and joy in him as the young boy clashed his wooden sword playfully against his elder brother. Suddenly both the boys turned towards him and squealed. Or at least the younger one did, yet even the older one smiled in a way that was so similar to Naruto's own. They charged towards him on the direwolves and Naruto closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were gone. The vision no longer available for him to see. His heart ached to see them again despite knowing none of it was real but just a fragment of his imagination. Or a part of a wish he never knew existed. One day, he told himself that he needed to have some hope for himself as well. Now that he had Azu back, his mother back, an army for his revolution, friends to support him. He might just see that dream become reality. Next day. Dawn arrived. Two groups stood outside the walls of Azu. One was a large army ready to march to war, the other a small party ready to end another war. It was a stark contrast which made Naruto Uzumaki smile. He looked at Azu and inspected the defenses and few thousand Zetsu that had arrived overnight to take the place of the ones leaving for Kumo. Azu was protected with a large army, defenses secured, and Lady Toka in charge. He looked at his own group and saw Tsunade and Jiraiya waiting to go. Kushina was beside Lord Arima and a few Uzumaki guards, and for the first time his mother gave him an approving smile. Her happiness for his effort to make peace was not a great secret. Hiden was scowling but stood by his Dark Lord's side loyally ready to kill anyone on a single command. Across from them stood Yahiko. Dressed in his newly forged battle armor, he was the image of a passionate and handsome leader full of courage. Commander Hoji and Lord Arima's son, Shin, was standing behind him. The two friends walked towards each other and grasped each other's hands firmly with smiles on their faces. Yahiko controlled his choked tea and tried to stop himself from tearing up. It was unmanly and not suitable for a newly appointed commander, but he didn't want to leave his friend like this. Naruto gave him a warm smile. Till I return. Yahiko numbly nodded and hugged him tightly as the Azuki patted his back gently. I believe in you, Yahiko, he whispered, making Yahiko shed a lone tear and nod in his friend's shoulder. They parted and Yahiko watched him mount his large white wolf. And then he was gone with his group, the Uzumaki flag flying tall and high behind. May we meet again. He walked across the deck towards a woman who was glancing across the vast sea. It was midnight and occasionally the moon would grace the watery body with its light. A cool breeze continued to blow, helping them sail closer and closer towards Storm Castle. She gave him such a warm smile followed by a motherly hug that relieved so much of his weariness after endless discussions with his advisors regarding the upcoming negotiation. Arima was still not happy with him, but that had not stopped the Lord from teaching his young leader some tricks in the war of words. But all of that was put aside for now as he cherished her embrace after craving it for his entire life. Tired? Asked Kushina sympathetically. A little. I still don't know if this is the right choice, but, he stopped, for he didn't want to reveal his doubts to anyone. But she understood and placed a hand on his shoulder. There was so much pride for him in her eyes that it made his heart swell. In every man's life there comes a time when they have to choose between something they love and something which others love. It's the most difficult choice and requires only the strongest of heart could bear, she said gently. Will you leave me again? He hated himself for sounding so vulnerable before her. But he did it regardless. Never. The rest of my life is for you, she promised, and he believed her, for he could feel her emotions within that heart of hers were real and genuine. I'll hold you to it, he warned, as she grabbed his shoulders, making him slide closer to her. I've missed you for so long, my son. Missed so much of your life, but I will make up for it in any way I can. All I want for you is to be happy. He nodded numbly, for it was so good to talk to her like this after that coldness that had seeped between them the past few days. I never wanted to be a leader, mother. To have this, he couldn't speak, for how could he describe that every little action of his impacted so many lives? That every decision he made always lead to him worrying about the consequences it would have on the people he cared about. Kushina was silent for several moments after that and gazed out at the sea. You're just like your father in some ways, Naruto. He never found much fondness for leadership, but both of you possess the strength to do what needs to be done. Minato wanted to become Hokage only to protect his people and not for his personal glory. You're no different, for you do everything for our clan, explained Kushina patiently. Do I remind you of him a lot? Asked Naruto hesitantly, knowing she missed Minato Namikaze. Kushina gave a sad smile. Yes, he and I both made many mistakes, but the best thing he did in his life was giving you to me. Mother, he said, clearly a little embarrassed, as dealing with emotional situations like these was not his strong suit. She laughed a little. Sometimes I forget you're not a boy but a man now. Yet always remember that for your mother you'll always be her little boy, she chided playfully, punching his shoulder lightly. Hi. He asked her about Hiruzen and the kind of man he was. She suggested that truth was the best option with the Hokage, for he was a righteous man. A man of honor. Naruto knew his own Azuki had once said such of Hiruzen Sarutobi when he ordered Naruto to take the survivors to Konoha. He had not trusted Konoha, but orders were orders, and so he had marched his last clansmen to those lands only to have them He still didn't even know what would happen if by some miracle peace actually happened. How could the hatred that had seeped so deep be healed? Don't fool yourself. He flinched, for that cynical part of him, the one that had been in and seen the darker side of this world, scolded him. It was entirely possible this meeting would end in B. Just whose only time could tell. One day later, Sunad waited at the beach watching the White Wolf march forward and inspecting the battered but still standing Castle Storm. The weather was gloomy and the thick dark clouds had already prevented any sunlight from touching this small island. Now that she looked at it, Castle Storm stood a little inside the island, surrounded by deep woods and dangerous wildlife. She stretched her senses to detect any hidden soldiers that Naruto might have placed to ambush Sunad's countrymen. It was no secret the boy hated her village, but it was also true that he was Minato's son with that same sense of honor that had brought him here. Still, she had to be sure. Sunad saw Jiraiya glancing around, keenly checking for any traps that awaited their teacher, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Kushina and the rest of Naruto's party were standing near the Uzumaki inspecting the lands for any traps set for their own. They should be here, said Sunad with a frown. Patience, Sunad. The weather is not so good and traveling by ship is dangerous, chided Jiraiya, making her sigh. I just want this madness to be over. We are already at war with Suna, we must achieve peace and the backing of the Uzumaki at all costs, insisted Sunad, and saw Jiraiya mildly glaring at her. That may be true, but that boy came many of our own people, Hike Kagami, Hike Kakashi, he let Minato just walk to his death. Will you just forget all that? If he insists Konoha make amends, then shouldn't he be held somewhat responsible for his crimes? Asked Jiraiya bitterly. Jiraiya, I speak the truth, Sunad. He may be Minato's son, but we are Konoha ninja and it is our duty to protect our village. I want peace just like you, but there must be some common ground, and regardless of what you think, I want this meeting to achieve that, explained Jiraiya, as she narrowed her eyes, but he didn't back down. And what if it fails? His stony silence was her answer. Sunad clenched her fists and bit her lips to suppress the growing anger and disappointment towards her teammate. She had expected this from Orochimaru surely, but not him. Angry, she turned around to walk away, but his words stopped her cold. If you betray the village, I will kill you. She would have been devastated if not for his moist eyes, his trembling lips as he made that dreadful promise. She knew how he felt for her, had known since they were in the academy, but she loved another. Yet that had never stopped Jiraiya from supporting her, from being her friend despite how opposite they were. But if one thing was definite about him was the fact that he was loyal to Konoha till his last bone. Serve the nation, not the ruler. Regardless of the leadership and its decisions of now and the future, Jiraiya would stand by them and obey. For he was a loyal ninja of Konohagakure. Yet she believed in something too, just like him. Believed that for a better world to be born, a world her grandfather, her little brother had dreamed of, it could only arrive if people made choices that just didn't serve their own interests. Sunad knew what Naruto had done, what he was, how dangerous he was, yet she also saw a hope in that boy. He wanted justice but also a better world, and he had came here making a choice that went against all his interests. Why? For peace, for his father. For honor. In this twisted world of lies and treachery, men like him were rare. Hiruzen was the same. All her life she had wondered what her true aim in life should be. After Nawaki's death, her dreams had shattered and she would have drowned herself in liquor if not for Dan. That man too wanted a better world, he would understand why she was doing this. But not Jiraiya. And it was precisely why she could never love him. They were too different. Yet, she had a purpose now. To build a better world not just for Konoha but for many others. Just like her grandfather had wanted. She turned around and walked towards her teammate. Saw the pain he was in, saw he was expecting her to lash out. However, she remembered her clan's motto. The one Tobirama had said to her one last time before going to Kumo, where he is in an ambush. Do your duty. It felt strangely right to say it to him, knowing she had freed him to do what he felt right. While also freeing her to do what she felt right. Jiraiya was stunned and left speechless. Sunad walked away with a renewed determination burning in her heart. Naruto watched Hiden quickly return from the woods. Having sent the cult leader to check out the position of the hidden Zetsus, Naruto was not happy to see Hiden looking worried. What is it? He asked straightforwardly, as the man knelt before him. My lord, your humble servants are in position and waiting for your command. I don't know who they are or how they got here, but they promise to fight for you the moment you give the command, revealed Hiden. Naruto sensed something was missing, and thankfully the others were standing away from him to hear it. And, he prompted impatiently, making Hiden tremble a little. Kisame is not here to lead those men of yours, my lord, said Hiden fearfully. Naruto's fists clenched shut as a wave of anger washed over him. He had given Kisame a direct order to come here and lead the charge of the 3,000-strong Zetsu army in case of treachery. He had stressed the importance of this meeting to his friend and staunch ally. And yet he was not here. For a single moment, he realized how vulnerable he was without his loyal comrades. He might have Lord Arima and the few Uzumaki, might have the Zetsus, even his mother, and Tsunade's loyalty to an extent. But would that be enough? No. I must carry forward no matter the odds. Regardless of who or who was not with him. It was his duty. Have our men surround the castle. If negotiations fail, then they shall storm the gates and kill all of our enemies. He would have finished his order if he had not seen Hiden going deathly pale and the thick mist that had set across the area to finally lift. It's not going to happen, my lord. The fear in Hiden's voice was unnerving, which made him turn around and saw the reason behind it. His heart froze, and he discovered why Kisame was not here. On the horizon, a single long ship emerged, which was followed by another and another until they were large enough to spread across the vast sea. 100-strong naval fleet proudly sporting 2 flags. The first was the one nation to whom these ships truly belonged to. And the other of the one he hated the most. Kirigakure and Konohagakure. The sheer absurdity behind what he saw struck him deep. The 2 most unlikely villages who hated each other now stood beside each other. Across the ships, he saw hundreds of men armed and ready to fight sporting the headbands of Kiri and Konoha. Konoha had given him their answer. Your honor shall be your downfall. Lord Arima's warning rang true in his heart and he regretted not heeding the wise man's words. But it was done and there was nothing that could change that. He looked across his companions to see they were equally shocked. Arima gave him a pointed glare and for a moment he thought the Lord would desert him for leading them to this folly. Yet remaining true the motto of their clan, Lord Arima and the Uzumaki walked forward and stood behind him. Family, duty, honor. In their eyes he saw resignation but also the desire to remain true Uzumaki till the end. To serve their leader despite the grave mistake he had made. There was no point in running, all they had was one ship which would never be able to outrun that vast naval fleet. He didn't know how Konoha managed to form an alliance with Kiri so quickly, but then again Konoha had a lot of wealth to offer. And Kisame had told him the Mizukage who was fighting a civil war in his own country needed every help he could get. And help he had got. Well played. This was not the work of an honorable man but one who was ruthless and willing to use every dirty trick to crush their enemies. Either Hiruzen Sarutobi had become a totally different man than what Lord Third, Tsunade, and Kushina had insisted him to be. Or the Hokage had been ousted, imprisoned, or killed by his own soldiers for proposing a peace which was not favorable to their nation. He saw realization dawn on Jiraiya and Tsunade. The white-haired man glanced at the approaching vast army bearing the flag of his nation and one final look at the Uzukage. Jiraiya gave a nod, earning a curt one from Naruto. The next moment the student of Hiruzen took several steps away from the group who were now his enemy. Tsunade stood transfixed, unable to believe the treachery happening before her eyes. It was on her insistence that the Uzumaki had came here, and now her worst nightmare came true. The Senju looked at Naruto with horror and disbelief evident in her eyes. Naruto stared at her, waiting for her to make her choice. For several long moments, Tsunade remained motionless, exchanging glances between Jiraiya and Naruto. Whatever choice she made would change everything in her life forever. Yet Naruto's eyes widened in surprise when the Senju took off her Konoha headband and stared at it miserably. Without waiting any further, she crushed the metal with her bare hands, scattering the broken pieces across the sand. Jiraiya looked crestfallen, but his eyes hardened as he prepared himself. Tsunade was reluctantly about to do the same to honor her oath she made to the Uzukage, yet was surprised when her teammate's jaw dropped and the very next second he ran for the sea towards the approaching army. Kushina had been stunned till now, unable to believe what she was saying. She was finally broken out of her stupor by the walkry of thousands. Seconds later, she watched vast hordes of armed warriors storming across the beach. They came out of the deep woods surrounding Castle Storm, all dressed in the uniform of the Akatsuki. And they took positions behind her son. Tsunade was again shocked to see this and she looked at the boy. Wordlessly, an entire conversation happened between them as he gave her a grim nod. So, this was his trump card, his defense in case of treachery, or his offensive card if things didn't go his way. It made her momentarily want to him to a pulp, but then seeing her own village's treachery doused her temper as she understood why Naruto had done this. She could see Jiraiya running across the water towards the approaching army. Soon enough he would be an enemy willing to take her life. Tsunade glanced at Naruto's assembled army. They numbered around 3,000, but when she looked at the other side, her heart plummeted. Yet she had made an oath, and it was time to honor it. When she walked forward to step beside the young boy, the Uzumaki men and Hidden were glaring at her, and justly so. But Naruto only gave her a small smile which raised her dampened spirits just a little. The boy's large wolf also marched forward and growled furiously. Kushina came running and joined the group. Whatever hesitation or loyalty she had left for Konoha was gone, and the desire to protect her only child shone fiercely in her bright eyes. The ships came closer to the shore and hundreds upon hundreds of Konoha and Kiri shinobi jumped over the sea water. Once enemies, they now stood as united allies. Among them Tsunade saw Orochimaru, Jiraiya, Fugaku Uchiha, Tsukumo Hatake and few other clan heads. Konoha had sent its might to crush their opponent once and for all. On the Kiri side leading the charge were none other than the dangerous 7 ninja swordsmen. Armed and ready to spill The Uzukage exhaled a cool breath as the naval fleet started launching massive fireballs from the launchers placed on the deck. When he turned towards his small yet determined army, his gaze was calm and determined. Are you with me? To the death. A smile graced his handsome face as he heard that unified roar from each and every man and woman present. The 4th Uzukage, the White Wolf, the youngest Kage, unleashed his massive ancestral sword and raised it high in the air. One by one the entire army unleashed their weapons and prepared themselves as the enemies drew nearer and nearer. For UZU, he charged, with his army right behind him much to the surprise of the approaching enemy soldiers and officers. He flicked his sword and the flames of hellfire came alive on the S-blade. Without hesitation he pointed it forward, unleashing several fireballs made up of green flames. The first wave of enemies were struck mercilessly, their screams halting the ones behind them as they watched their over-eager comrades be burned alive and sink into the sea. Not even the cool water enough to stop the flames. He quickly his burning green sword in the water, making the flames surround a large chunk of the enemy force from all sides. His soldiers rained down several kunai and shurikensi down several more dozen. However, the flames surprisingly were defeated and vanished within moments. Naruto narrowed his eyes at Jiraiya, who had performed the sealing. The man glared right back at him. The two armies clashed seconds later, making the entire area filled with the cries of S&S soldiers. Naruto countered a parry from a Konoha Junin, struck the main with a kick to the ankle. When he fell on his knees, the Uzukage S. He blocked a rain of kunai with his sword quickly and the end of 2 more enemies who tried to attack him together. Many more charged at him, eager to be the one to kill the Uzukage themselves. They paid for their mistakes as he made quick work of their with his sword. The fools never even knowing how he was in close quarter combat. He saw many Kiri shinobi in the rear about to unleash the mist their village was famous for. Knowing how dangerous those ninjas were, Naruto quickly unleashed a wild wind wave, shattering the mist and its creators across the vast sea. Across the battlefield, he saw Tsunade engaged in a duel with Jiraiya. Kushina fighting against the Kiri ninja swordsman all by herself. He was surprised to see the sheer skill of his mother in Kenjutsu and the raw power with which she was not just holding but also pushing Kiri's best warriors back. Lord Arima was fighting fiercely against Fugaku Uchiha and Tsukumo Hatake by himself. Hidden had gone on a mad spree any stupid fool that got in his way. If not for the rest of the Uzumaki clan members covering the cult member, he would have been long ago. His wolf, Ghost, was busy tearing apart any shinobi that dared to attack him. The rest of his army was clashing against the superior and large enemy force. It was a stalemate. For now. As he continued battling and crushing through ranks upon ranks of enemies, he realized it was up to him to break this attack. He had to crush the enemy's strength no matter the cost. Suddenly, he was brought out of his thoughts and forced to parry a strike to his back. A figure emerged from the water so fast and soon enough a kick sent Naruto sailing away until he steadied himself. His eyes burned with righteous anger as he saw one of the men responsible for the misery of his clan. One who had dared to harm Akeno and experiment upon innocent Uzumaki children. You. The pale-skinned, dark-haired man with snake-like yellow eyes looked at him amusedly. There was a madness in those eyes, a depravity that would have shook any weaker soul, a sadistic gleam as he watched all the carnage happening all around with a disinterested look. I am Orochimaru, Lord Fourth, he introduced in that silky voice followed by a mocking bow. Where is Hiruzen's Sarutobi? Asked Naruto coldly, and saw an even more sadistic look appear in those evil eyes. One glance in Orochimaru's eyes was enough to show what must have happened to the third Hokage. By his own men for doing the right thing. The era of honor has long gone, my lord. Lord Arima's words again struck him. The man had been right about a lot of things. If these bastards had Hiruzen, then there was no hope for peace. Naruto watched the blue sea turn dark red with the bee of men. The sight of hundreds of bee floating aimlessly, the cries of the S&S, the sound of clashing steel. The Great War. That was the fate of this world now, and the one who emerged victorious would forever change the elemental nations in their vision. He glanced into Orochimaru's mad eyes and raised his sword. Ready to he taunted, earning another amused chuckle from the man. He didn't even raise his sheathed sword. I have a different game in mind, Lord Fourth, mocked Orochimaru, as he performed an extremely fast set of hand seals. Naruto charged to stop whatever devilry this man had planned, but Orochimaru was faster and quickly his hand on the sea water. A monstrous shockwave blew away Naruto and many other hundreds. A woman screamed. Naruto's heart stopped, for he knew that voice, knew who it belonged to. Horrified, he ran in the direction he had last felt that presence, determined to get there before the unthinkable happened. Stepping over B and the BC, he ran faster and faster. And then he saw it. The sky turned fiery red as the image of a snarling fox appeared. Waves upon waves of foul chakra spread across the sea, consuming and burning few unfortunate wounded who couldn't get away fast enough. The corrupted chakra ate away those B, reducing them to dust. Men screamed and started to run in order to get away from the monster that had arisen. He didn't want to believe what he was seeing, didn't want to accept that flaming body marred by a power he knew. A cursed seal. Mother. The woman, no, the creature standing on all four limbs with 5 fully formed tails stared menacingly at him. The 7 ninja swordsmen who had been previously fighting against her were now standing beside her ready to attack him. Orochimaru walked forward and casually spread his arms wide demonstratively with a sickly smile. Let's play. ... Lord Fourth. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.